Okay, so we are looking at our review here for PFT 100. We're gonna start. I did this one a little bit differently than some of our other ones. We're gonna start. We're gonna kind of like go through it as if it was like an aspiring personal trainer from start to finish, like what all their responsibilities are and like how to succeed in the various parts of the industry. So we'll start by like what it means to kind of become a personal trainer. Then we'll talk about like where to work, whether you want to work for yourself or not. Then we'll talk like if you do want to work for yourself, how to market your services. No matter if you're working in commercial places or working for yourself, you're probably going to at some point come across some sales technique that you're going to need to talk about. So we'll go into that as well. And then finally, we'll break down sort of how you want to go about, preparing a potential list of clients. Starting up at the top here, if we're talking about starting out, so first thing you need to do as a personal trainer is you need to like obtain certification, right? So you need to get that from like an NCCA accredited institution. Not that there aren't like weekend certifications where it's like become a personal trainer on a Saturday. Those are great and maybe they're really cool, but they are certainly not like NCCA accredited. And so like you're probably not going to be able to use those to get into most jobs. So an NCCA accreditation is just a little bit of a higher caliber because it has very specific rules associated with it. Number one, you have to pass a proctor's exam, which is evaluated by like wherever it is you're taking it. So like that has very specific rules. NASM, for instance, makes you go to a company called PSI Exams Online. Or PSI exams not online, and that's where like you go and sit down and they basically have somebody there with cameras like making sure that nobody's pulling stuff out of their pocket, answering any answers. It's all knowledge based. Also, you also have to prove that you have your CPR card in order to be able to take that exam. So all personal trainers must maintain CPR certification while they are accredited. And then also every 2 years, you must perform continuing education. So the amount of continuing education that's required by all trainers is going to be about what we call 20 contact hours. You have to go 20 hours of class basically over the course of 2 years. And that will earn you, NASM likes to call them CEUs. Sometimes you'll hear them referred to as like CECs. Sometimes like other companies will use different units. They'll say you need to earn 20 CECs, continuing education credits, right? NASM breaks it down into like a tenth of that. They just call it CEUs, and you need to earn 2.0. So NASM refers to it, like I said, as CEUs. You need to earn 2.0, but technically you only need to earn 1.9 because 0.1 of your 2.0 has to be CPR. You have to prove that you are maintaining your CPR every 2 years. So technically you need to earn 1.9 plus 0.1 from your CPR. But just think of it as if they ever ask you, they'll say you need to earn 2.0. So that's the first thing you need to do. Now that you are certified, you can start considering like what type of trainer you want to be. Like where do you want to work? And so as we're looking at that, there's a few kind of common options here. There's large scale fitness facilities, medium scale fitness facilities, small boutique places, very high end facilities, or you could be an independent contractor. So we're going to break down the three most common here, which are going to be large scale fitness facilities, aka like your big box gyms, 24-hour fitness, Golds, things like that. So those places have very specific branding, right? They have like a very clear cut of the market. Everybody knows who they are. They kind of have an image. These places have multiple locations, and this is where most trainers actually work. Like most people are going to work in a big box gym, at least starting out. What's cool about that is like they've got the whole bringing in new employees, getting them trained, and helping them build a lead base. All that stuff is like provided for you pretty early on. So management will often help you with that kind of stuff. They know how to like train new employees. So that's really nice. Disadvantages are obviously you have very little control over your schedule. You're working for a manager who's going to sort of tell you exactly what to do and, kind of put pressure on you to have certain sales quotas and things like that. And so sometimes that can be a high pressure environment that not everybody is super comfortable in. And so maybe they find themselves in like a boutique or high-end facility, or maybe they get tired of it from working there for a long time, and then they want to move to maybe a higher hourly pay at a place like a boutique gym. These are really cool because like they're going to range in scope and size. Sometimes you'll have a really small boutique gym. Sometimes you'll have like big chains like Equinox. Equinox is kind of unique. They really are similar to a large-scale fitness facility, but their price point is much higher. So they are also kind of checking that box as well. They're kind of boutique-y. But they serve a very niche segment, right? They serve a very like specific segment of the community there. Now, boutique facilities and also like large scale facilities, both of these will often have really cool like specializations in training. So like large scale facilities often offer things that are like in-house certifications, right? Like they'll often have like 24-hour fitness has like a little certification that you can get on like their supplement line, so that they teach their trainers like how to talk about certain supplements for their clients. If you go to that, you might earn like point 0.4 CEUs because it was like a 4-hour class. So that's what's kind of cool about both of these here. This is kind of down here, but I guess technically this would also exist in this version as well. So we'll put that on that line, and now it's very official. So you will also, in a boutique gym, have like a very luxury, upscale, exclusive feel, right? That's really what they're trying to sell. They're trying to sell an exclusive environment. Now, independent contractors are a little bit different, right? Independent contractors are people who work whenever they are needed to work. Like if I hired somebody to paint my wall, that person is an independent contractor, right? Like I brought them in to do one very specific job. So they worked as when like they're required to. That's great because they have a lot of freedom, but at the same time, like you don't have a lot of job security because like once that job is complete, they might not need you for the job again, right? Now, another classic example of independent contracting is like if you are a trainer going around to people's houses and providing like in-home training, or even if you are just like running your own fitness business as like a sole employee, like a sole proprietorship, you're basically doing independent contracting. And you could go to a gym and pay rent at that gym. You're not an employee of that gym. You're an independent contractor for each of your individual clients, right? Again, that's really great, but you generally can't put your clients on some type of contract to like keep them tied down to you. So work might dry up. Like in the times that I was doing independent contracting around the holidays, it slows down like crazy because people are traveling a lot and things like that. And then it picks up like crazy again in the new year. So there's definitely like ups and downs. That's a disadvantage of independent contracting. But obviously, like you have a lot of control over your schedule. You are allowed to work whenever you want to. You want to take a vacation in the middle of March? Go for it. You can do whatever you want. You are your own boss. And so you have complete autonomy there to kind of develop your business the way you want to. However, you are also completely in charge of all of your marketing and your sales. You don't have anybody there to support you, and so that's also a little bit of a downside. So there's definitely some trade-offs there. Speaking of marketing, if we're talking about how you're going to market your services, looking at like marketing, remember marketing is not just like promoting. Like there's a difference between like marketing and promoting, right? Like promoting is like talking about your service, but marketing is all the stuff you want to consider, like what corner of the market can you carve out, right? And so like marketing, we're going to define it as the ways in which an individual promotes their goods or services in order to like get a positive customer response, right? That's the idea here. And so we use this kind of guideline of 4 key things to kind of focus on here, which we call the marketing mix, right? And so the first one, we sometimes refer to these as like the 4 Ps: product, price, place, and promotion. So the first one's going to be product. That's the specific product that you are actually offering your customers, right? Now, when it comes to developing a product, you want to kind of go about it one of 2 ways. You either want to be as appealing as possible and like blanket everybody and try to hit everybody, or one thing that you can do is develop a niche in the personal training industry, right? So like, for instance, you guys are walking out with your corrective exercise certification and your fitness nutrition certification. So you have a niche in the fitness industry. If somebody's trying to weigh their options of which hire to train, which trainer to hire, and they have an option between personal trainer A and personal trainer B. Let's say personal trainer A has been working in the industry for 10 years and they've done their recertification, but they really haven't taken any time to like develop themselves specifically in one way or another. They're just a really good trainer. That's okay, nothing wrong with that. But trainer B, who has like taken the time to like be a really good trainer and they've maintained it for maybe 5 years, but they've worked really hard at developing a specific niche like nutrition or corrective exercise or sports performance or youth or senior or behavior change strategies, like any of those things, right? They have like a specific thing. When somebody's considering those things, they might go, oh, that person's training seniors and I'm over 65. This person probably has taken the time to develop skills particularly for me. So they're probably going to lean towards that person who might have less experience because they have experience particularly in one key area. You know, this person over here, like this person over here is a jack of all trades, but master of none, right? This is a person who's like a jack of all trades, but also a master of something specifically. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. Then you have like price. Price is the amount you're going to charge for your goods and services. Don't forget this includes things like discounts for buying large amounts of volume, you know, that can appeal to somebody who's looking to get their price point down and isn't afraid of certain types of commitment. You've also got things like seasonal pricing. That's something to consider. You're using that to market. You know, like some companies, they charge the same amount all year round. Doesn't matter if it's the winter, doesn't matter if it's the summer, doesn't matter when it's happening. But your marketing, you can consider like trying to have be more appealing at certain times a year, you know, get that summer bod, you know. And then there's things like bundle packages, right? If you're bundling this and this, you might get a certain discount on things. So those are all things to consider when it comes to your price. Place is another one. Place is specifically the channel that your product will go through in order to reach your customer. For instance, like if you are marketing to be a product that is very convenient, right? Like the product you're trying to sell is convenience. Well, then your place should reflect that, right? Maybe the place is in-home personal training. Or maybe your product is that you have access to really great equipment. Well, then your place is in whatever gym you're going to be training at that has that really great equipment, right? So places are the channels that your product goes through in order to reach your customers. If it's in a gym, if it's in home, if it's training in the park, you know, no matter what that is, when you consider your other P's, right? Price and product and promotion and things like that, you're going to use your place as like part of your marketing tools. Be like, I'm training in this gym that has all of this super fancy high-tech equipment. Good Lord, something is in my, I'm being attacked. And then if you're training in like the park, you're like, enjoy the outdoors, like get some sun, right? If you're training at home, like I'm going to be convenient. We're bringing the training to you, right? And then promotion is the communication of your product, right? The communication in order to like generate that positive response. Are you marketing primarily through social media? Are you promoting your product primarily through your website? Are you promoting your product primarily through word of mouth, radio, print, TV, ads, whatever, if you do that? Those are all like the types of promotion that you're going to consider, right? Your strongest tool is going to be word of mouth. That is number one, absolutely key for personal trainers. If you do an excellent job, care about your clients, and really put the effort in, your clients are always going to appreciate that. They're going to tell their friends, and that's going to be how you build your business. So that's one of our absolute best ones through promotion is word of mouth. But obviously in 2020, we see a lot of social media being a very popular thing nowadays. You know, scrolling through ads, like learning a little bit about like how to market through like messages and social media and things like that. That's also a really big part of promotion nowadays. So no matter what, you're still going to kind of, you're going to want to think of those 4 Ps, whether you're working for yourself or working in a club, you know. Now you're not in charge, like if you're an employee working at 24 Hour Fitness, you're not in charge of marketing. But if you are trying to like build a client list, you want to be as appealing as possible. So there are things that you can do to market yourself within that company and kind of set yourself apart. But generally, like let's say you're doing like independent contracting, you're really the one who's going to be in charge of all of that marketing. So that's another sort of thing about like being responsible for your own business. You are responsible for those overhead costs. But if it pays off in the end, it's completely worth it. Now, again, no matter whether you're working in a gym or working for yourself, sales are probably going to be a part of your life as a personal trainer. And, you know, a lot of times when we start talking about sales, people get really kind of antsy and they get a little on edge because they think of sales and they think of that like sleazy car salesman that's willing to like say anything to kind of win somebody over, right? But that's not what we're here talking about here. Remember, I love this quote, and so I wanted to include it in the review here. Professionals who are not fanatical about selling are also not fanatical about increasing your client's performance, increasing people's health, increasing their self-esteem, or their quality of life. Because until a sale is made, you can't do any of that. So if you are passionate about helping people, you got to get them their sessions, which means they're gonna have to buy them, right? Let's talk about like how to do that. Like, let's talk about like how to build up those sales. So one of the most important things in the concepts of like selling is creating enough value, because what's always happening in our brains, like as human beings, is we are constantly weighing value versus cost, right? And we always want value to outweigh cost. And a lot of times when we hear cost, we think of like price, right? We think of like the money that we're spending, but cost can be things like time and effort. Cost can be things like a level of commitment, getting tied down to something, right? And so we want to make sure that the value of whatever it is we are selling is greater than the cost of the price, or the cost of the time, the cost of the effort, right? Yeah, this is gonna be hard, but you're gonna look awesome. Yeah, this is going to take a lot of time, but you're going to be a more efficient athlete. Yeah, this is gonna be a large commitment, but you are going to feel a lot healthier, right? You are committing and investing in yourself. So that's a big part of like learning how to create that value there. Now, one of the other big things you want to do when it comes to like determining, like, because that's the thing, if you know that you need to build in value to overcome costs, you need to figure out like what that person values most, right? You need to figure out like what's most important to the person you're talking to, and what things are like that they're most nervous about. So what you're going to do in order to determine those things is you're going to ask a lot of questions. You're interviewing. It's a conversation with your client while you're doing that sales. And so one of the things you want to do is ask open-ended questions, right? Open-ended questions are questions that open up the conversation and get your client talking. It helps you understand your client's true motivations, right? Like if somebody comes to you and they say, and like you're talking to them, you're trying to build value. And let's say you didn't ask enough open questions, and so the person comes in and they're like, I'm here, I do want to lose weight, but they're on the fence about like actually signing up for training, and it's like, okay, and like, you're trying to build as much value as you can. It's like, well, we got this, which helps burn calories. We got this, which is going to be really great. We're going to make sure that like your nutrition and your exercises are maximizing like caloric deficits. That's going to have the most effective like weight loss on you. And your client, they're still really just not feeling it. They're like, I'm not totally convinced, right? But then you start asking some open-ended questions like, why is it you want to lose weight? And they're like, well, I went to the doctor recently, and the doctor said that like my cholesterol is really high, my blood pressure is really high, and it's all kind of related to my weight. So I'm trying to figure out like how I can drop a few pounds to get those things in line, because I don't want to be like unhealthy and then not make it to my grandkids' wedding, And it's like, okay, so what's really important to you is not so much like to lose weight. What's important to you is longevity, like being able to live a long, healthy, and happy life, right? That's what's actually important to you. So then we start to pivot the conversation away from just the idea of like, hey, this is going to burn calories. Hey, that's going to help you create a caloric deficit. Instead to talking about things like, this exercise is going to maximize caloric burn, but it's also a weight-bearing exercise, which is really great because that increases your bone density. And that bone density is part of the things that keep you upright so that you can continue like walking down and partying at that wedding that you want to get to, right? When we're going to talk about like your nutrition, and yeah, that's going to reduce your calorie intake and that's going to be helpful, but we're also going to talk about like high fiber foods, which are going to lower that bad cholesterol. We're going to talk about how to get some healthy fats in your diet to increase your heart health. And so like now we know what parts of the conversation to kind of focus on. Again, we're developing a niche mid-conversation with our client so that we're actually striking at the heart of like what their real values are. And so open-ended questions are really going to help you determine those things. If you can't get somebody to start talking about like what their actual motivations are, it's going to be very difficult to dial in on what's important to them and what we need to talk about. Now, At the end of the day, the most important thing that you can do, whether you are working for yourself, working for a gym, whatever, if you are interacting with people, you need to provide what is called uncompromising customer service, right? And the idea behind that is that you are trying to consistently add value to each and every one of your members and clients, right? You are trying to find a way to add as much value into the service that you are offering, personal training, group exercise, whatever, corrective exercise, I don't care what it is. You are constantly trying to add as much value into that as possible. Whether that is simply like sending a motivational text to your client every now and then, just to keep them like, to lift their spirits and be like, hey, I'm sure your legs are really beat up after yesterday, and going to the bathroom is probably a nightmare right now, but you really crushed it yesterday, and I promise that's going to help you reach your goals. You know, like just that little motivational text, like being optimistic and motivating and providing that type of customer service can be a really great, that's really something you want to focus on, right? And so a way that you can always do this is just continually ask yourself this question. If my entire career was based on how this person that I'm interacting with right now evaluate, well, hold on, I got the quote right here. If my entire future were based on the way this one client evaluated his or her experience right now, would I change anything? Like, what can I do to enhance this person's experience? The more you can continually ask yourself that, the better, you know? That is how you are going to provide that uncompromising customer service. But remember, it is uncompromising. You do not have to step outside of the realm of being a personal trainer just to provide customer service, you know? It is not your job to do, you know, to walk your client's dog. You know, that is not related. That is compromised customer service. You're going too far outside of like your realm of things. That is definitely something you want to ask yourself. Now that all of that is done, you know like what you need to do, you've got everything laid out. Now it's time to actually get your clients. So you need to do a couple of things here to prepare yourself for, you know, figuring out how many clients you're going to need. And the first step is going to be to determine your annual income. So how much money do you want to earn? Right? So let's just say I'm going to use $50,000 a year, not because it's super ideal, but because it makes the math really easy. So you want to earn $50,000 a year in your first year as a personal trainer, right? So now what you need to do, that you have your annual goal, you need to figure out what your weekly income goals are, right? So you need to determine your weekly income goals by dividing your annual income by 50. We're going to say 50 because we're going to account for like 2 weeks of vacation, right? Also, again, I think math easier. So if I need to earn $50,000 a year and there are 50 weeks in a year, I need to earn $1,000 per week, right? Step 3, I need to determine how many sessions are needed in order to meet that weekly goal. Now this is where the path kind of diverges. There's 2 ways to go about this. If you're working for yourself, you're the one who gets to determine your prices, right? And you're coming up with your list, so your prices aren't out there yet. So this is where you need to ask yourself, well, how many hours a week do I want to work? If I want to work 20 hours a week, how much do I need to charge to earn $1,000, right? So if we take $1,000 and let's say you want to work 20 hours a week. So we take 1,000 and we divide it by 20, that's going to mean that we need to work we need to work 20 sessions, 20 sessions a week. We're going to work 20 hours. That means we're going to charge $50 per session, right? 1,000 divided by 20, $50 a session. Cool. Now we can kind of move on to the rest of our steps here. But if we go back and let's say we're working in a gym where it's not $50 a session. Let's say you're working in a gym where maybe they're charging $50 a session, but it's a 50-50 split, so you only get $25 of that. All right, well, if that's the case, you're earning $25 an hour. You want to earn $50,000 a year. That's $1,000 a week. $1,000 divided by $25 per session. That's going to mean that you need to work a 40-hour work week, right? 1,000 divided by 25 is going to come out to 40. So that's how many sessions you need. You need 40 sessions per week. So now you need to determine your closing percentage. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave that number, right? We're going to put that 40 session number aside for just a moment, and we'll come back to it in just a minute. So now what you need to do is you need to get on the floor and start selling, right? Try to get as many appointments set up as possible. And while you're doing that, you're going to track your numbers. Like you're going to determine like, hey, how many people did I talk to today? I talked to that lady, right? And you're going to total all those numbers up, right? Now, your closing percentage, what that is it's the total number of people you talked to. So you took a survey, figured out how many people you talked to, versus the number of people who actually signed up for training. So what you're going to do is you're going to divide that number of people talked to by the number of people who actually signed up for training. So let's say you talked to, let's say you do it for a whole week, right? And you talked to 100 people, right? So you talk to 100 people in a week, which is a ton, right? That was like 20 people a day, 5 days, over a 5-day a week, and 10 people signed up for training. That's not bad. You were signing up 2 people a day. That's a pretty darn good rate. So your closing percentage is going to be 10%. 100 people spoken to versus 10 people signed up. That's a 10% closing rate. Cool. Now that you have that, we're going to set that number aside. So we've got how many sessions we need. We got that number sitting aside. We got our closing percentage of 10%. We got that sitting aside. Now we need to give ourselves a deadline so we can light a fire under our butt, right? So we can actually like forecast and figure out how long it's going to take us in order to actually reach our financial goals. So let's say we set that deadline for 8 weeks. We're gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna give myself 8 weeks to get and we're working in a gym as our example. So we're gonna give ourselves 8 weeks to acquire our 40 sessions per week, right? Our 40 clients. So how many people, now that you give yourself a deadline, step 6, you need to determine how many people need to be interacted with overall, based on your closing percentage, in order to reach your goal of 40 sessions per week. So if I have a closing percentage of 10%, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 40 clients that I need and I'm going to divide that by 10%. So that means I need to speak to 400 people. So I'm going to get my butt out there and start pounding the pavement, right? So now I need to know that I need to talk to 400 people in step 6. Now I can break it down even further and figure out how many people I need to talk to each day. I want to reach 400 people, right? I've got 8 weeks to do it. So 400 divided by 8, that means that I need to talk to 5 people, right? Is that wrong? Got the 0 in the wrong place. 400 divided by 8 weeks. Yeah, 50 people. I need to talk to 50 people a week, right? So now if I need to talk to 50 people a week, I'm going to work 5 days a week. That means that I'm going to take 50 and divide it by 5. That means I need to talk to people, talk to 10 people a day, right? So I need to talk to 10 people each day. Now I need to determine like how many hours I'm like working, like how many people an hour can I contact? So let's say I'm working a 5-hour day. I take my 5 people a day divided by an hour. I need to interact with a new member once every hour. I need to get on the gym floor, walk around for 1 hour at a time, be like, hi, I'm Brad, I'm a personal trainer. Can I ask you some questions about like what it is you're interested in, you know? Cool, there we go. Now, every time I talk to somebody, that's where we kind of skip down to steps 9 and 10. That is where you're going to try to get somebody's contact information, right? After you give your spiel, be like, yeah, actually, well, you just pull that pin right there, it'll adjust, and you're good to go. And I'm like, oh, thanks, that's really awesome. Yeah, no problem. So you're working on this leg extension machine here. What is it that you're really trying to break down? It's like, well, you know, I'm just working on the leg strength. And it's like, oh, okay, that's really great. Do you have any like knee problems or back problems or anything like that? Is that why you're working on your leg strength? It's like, yeah, I started doing this because I had to rehab my knee a few years ago from an ACL tear. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's like, and then that conversation kind of opens up. And then they're like, well, if you're ever interested in like how to build some stability in your knee, here's my contact information. You can offer it. I can write down your name and number and maybe we can set up like a fitness assessment, right? There we go. I instantly like open up the conversation to see if they're interested in personal training. So once I get their contact information, right? Step 10, I'm gonna follow up with them. The next day or even later that day, I'm gonna send them an email. I'm gonna give them a call. And I'm going to say, hey, this is Brad from the gym. I wanted to know, I wanted to talk to you more about like that knee stability stuff. Can we put you on the books for like a fitness assessment? It's totally free. It's included in your account. I'd love to just sit down with you for about an hour and break it down for you. How does later this week sound? You know, you're going to potentially try to follow up and schedule that fitness assessment. So we covered a lot here, right? We talked about like determining how much we want to earn. Then we talked about like what our closing percentage is. And then we talked about like giving ourselves a deadline in order to meet that, number, that desired annual income, right? And that honestly is about it. If you follow all these things, it's a pretty good guideline for setting yourself up. Don't get me wrong, I think like the breaking it down per hour thing and breaking it down even each day is almost a little too specific. But if you're the type of person who sometimes like has a little bit of trouble like motivating themselves, and we see those people at the gym constantly who are just like, they're trainers just kind of hanging out behind the front desk. It's like, the middle of the workday, and there's tons of people on the gym floor, and they're like, why don't I have enough clients? Why am I not making a living? And it's like, you got to get your butt out there, and so like sometimes like being like, you know what, I got to talk to 5 people today within the next few hours. That is good for motivating yourself. So those things can be helpful. I think they're a little overly specific, especially trying to break stuff down per hour, considering that like your schedule fills up and you don't really have a lot of hours to work the gym floor sometimes. But it's definitely something you do want to consider. So that is about it. You guys are reviewed. If you have any questions about the exam or anything, it's going to be up on Canvas. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to text or reach out to me. But break some legs, everybody, kick some butt. And we'll see you tomorrow for the start of our sports performance class, which is exciting. See ya.